Hi Rhonda, it's Katelyn. I'm so excited that you're doing this. I was really excited when your name was in my inbox, and I'm thrilled to help you improve some of your images. But I just want to let you know that your images have improved so much since our workshop together. So I just want to encourage you that you're doing really great, and you should be really proud of yourself. And these images are awesome. So um, let's start with this one, and I think this one. Probably needs the most work out of all of them, and that's not a bad thing. That's just looking overall, these look amazing straight out of camera. They just do. And this is beautiful straight out of camera, but I think it's a little underexposed. And even though you can edit it to look correct, images are always going to be better if you can expose in camera properly, so you don't have to do a lot of manipulation later. And so I think if you just wanted to increase the light in the image on the left in camera, then you would see a brighter image as your end result. But let's move on to how you edited it. I think it's great. I think it's a beautiful image. Now, because they're side by side, it's going to be a little harder for me to explain. Just how I would adjust this image. I think her exposure-wise, the light in the image is great. I don't think anything's overexposed or necessarily too dark. What I'm going to do is just crop this over. Oop, oop, oop. I'm stuck. Here we go. I'm just going to crop it so I can just show you a little bit of what I would do to this final image. Just little tweaks. So if this is what we had, it's beautiful, and I don't think, unless you compared it to other images, you wouldn't notice this, but it has a very strong magenta tone to it. So the way you could fix that, if it bothered you, would just be to take a little bit of the green and increase that, and take a little bit. So we have a little bit too much magenta naturally. We'll just bump that down a little bit. Another way to change it would be to go down to split toning, and obviously I'm in Lightroom 4. Doing all this in Photoshop is really hard to do, and so I really recommend Lightroom if you're not already using it. So let's just let's adjust the color of the highlights a little bit. So I just put the saturation to 6, and all this is doing is changing the tone. Do you see in the image as I'm scrolling how different the color is? So I'm just basically making it a little less with purple tones, and I'm making it a little creamier with some warmer tones. So I'm going to do the same thing with shadows. So what we have here, it just takes a little bit of the purple out. So I'm going to just duplicate this one. So this is the image we were looking at before, and that's it after. And I am going to see if I can show you side by side. So do you see how there's a little less purple in her face, and in her, you can really tell in her hand. So right here, her hand looks purple. Here, her hand looks more like a natural skin tone, and there's less magenta purple in her face, and that's just from using split toning right here. So let's move on. Make sure we have time for everything. This is beautiful. I think it's awesome. I think she's a beautiful girl. And you should be proud of yourself. Your edited image doesn't really look much different than your straight out of camera image. So your light's great. Something simple, I mean, just really simple would be, maybe cropping it just a little tighter. That's just something I like to do, just because if you're going to have no lines in the background to create composition, then that means that she and her body is creating composition. And so I think it's just fine to crop in pretty close instead of having, come on, reset. Instead of having some of this empty space, I think you could crop it in just a little closer and have her fill more of the space if you wanted to. As far as exposure and editing, I think it's great. I think you did a great job, and it's hard to critique something that's so good. So let's move on. The only thing I would say here is just a little bit of cropping, and you'd be set. I actually like that the image is tilted a little bit. So over here, I love what you did with her and the color in this, because obviously there's a green tone to this image, and so yeah, I really like what you did here, and I think you did a great job at evening out her skin tone and just making her look, I don't know who she is, but she's beautiful. So as you're editing images like this, I think something to be careful of, it's not really a issue here because she has blonde hair, but sometimes when you really increase the blacks, you lose some detail, and sometimes the little shadows in the image start to become really, really, really dark. I don't think it's too dark in this image at all. I think this image is great. Um, the only thing that you may look into is trying to make her hand the same white balance as her face. So if you look at her hand looks purple and her face looks really accurate and really warm. So that's something you could play around with, and that's something that you could use split toning with right over here that we just used 2 pictures ago. But it's beautiful. I think you have beautiful work, and you should be really excited about it. So I would just pay attention to those little shadow and highlight adjustments on all of your work. And yeah, you should be really excited and really proud of yourself. So yeah, the only thing about this is cropping. That's the only thing I see in this image that I would change. Is I would just bring her head a little bit closer to fill in. This is definitely a headshot, and so headshots are supposed to take up majority of the composition. So I hope this was helpful, and I can't wait to talk to you next week. Bye.